I have a question for you, you fabulous interior design professional. Here it is. Do you think it's possible that you would generate less revenue but make way more profit? Right? It's a trick question. You're so right. The answer is absolutely it's possible. And someone who did it and did it with such style and such grace is Business of Design member and interior designer extraordinaire, Lindsay Kjellberg. Lindsay is from Modesto, California. Most of her work is residential, some is commercial. You're going to hear about that. And she found Business of Design maybe like 7 or 8 years ago. And she's one of those people who just decided to go for it. She listened to the videos, watched the videos, implemented immediately. It's not hard to do. I speak very plainly, tell you exactly step by step what I do on every single project. Lindsay did it. It works. And yes, you heard me right. Her income actually dropped, but who cares? Her profit skyrocketed. And that happened for a variety of reasons. For one thing, she decided to value profit over revenue, which is a really important lesson. So she goes from $800,000 in revenue, but a paltry $30,000 to take home, to only $600,000 in revenue, but $250,000 to take home. Now, that's the math I like. And Lindsay's going to tell you exactly how she did it. Spoiler alert, I don't know that there's any brand new idea in here. She just so beautifully illustrates that what we teach works. She charges for every minute she works on clients, and she talks about how she does that. She started charging for consultations, and she talks about why that matters. She talks about strategic pricing. So if it's a job she's not crazy about or a job that's going to be really small, she actually charges more, and I love that. She talks about her current work-life balance and how she has taken 1 week off every other month, but continued to generate a high profit and high salary. So Lindsay Kjellberg, you can find her at LHK Interiors. That's her website. You can find her at LHK Interior on Instagram. Go to the show notes. We'll show you everything. You should definitely follow Lindsay if you're not. She's one smart cookie. And this is a really good episode. If you feel like you need a kick in the butt, now is exactly the right time for you to focus on getting your business in order. And you know what? Don't worry about growing more clients. Make the projects you have work for you. We're really glad you're here. This episode is brought to you by Aquavado and the House of Roll Studio in Toronto. Aquavado is a trade-focused plumbing showroom designed to support interior designers like us with expert product guidance, educational support, and concierge-level service. Inside, the House of Roll Studio has curated selections of Perrin & Rowe, Roll, Shaw's, Victoria and Albert, Emtech, and Schwab. On Tuesday, October 7th, House of Roll Studio will host studio sessions for designers looking to build a social media strategy that will target ideal clients and build brand equity. The panel features Tiffany Lee, Paris McKenna, Olivia Beautry, and Chelsea Mazur. 4 women who've grown strong, distinctive brands from humble beginnings by using social media with clarity, consistency, and purpose. Learn more and RSVP at aquavado.com/designers. That's AQUAVATO.com/designers. And BOD listeners, you can use the promo code BODstudio25 to get 25% off registration. Enter the code at checkout when registering for any Studio Sessions event. Lindsay, I feel like I wish this were in person because it's just so good to see you.
Oh,
How
you
are you?
too. Doing well. How have you been?
I'm doing really well. I understand your oldest is graduating from
From high school.
from high school. I
Yes.
I can't even believe that. Is this exciting? Is it bittersweet? Like, how are you feeling?
It's exciting, but it's scary since she's my oldest. Just kind of figuring out, all the college applications or if, what she was going to do and trying to go through that with her. So exciting, but also kind of sad.
I know. For so many interior designers, this is the point in their life when they can't make excuses anymore.
Mhm.
Often people will say, like, well, I haven't really been too worried about my business because I was, I was home with kids, or I only did it part-time and my spouse has a really good job. But then once the little ones start leaving the nest, for
Right.
university and college and all that kind of stuff,
Mhm.
you don't have those excuses to keep you small anymore. And I'm wondering, do you think about like how far you've come, and are you so happy your business is already established for success while this transition's happening?
Absolutely. And, as the kids are little, and so this last year, I had my three oldest were all in high school. So I had a freshman, sophomore, and a senior. And people always say, get ready for college. You gotta, and we had been saving, and grandparents said, oh, we've put aside some money. And I mean, she's at a UC, she's going to UC. The first
Right.
year is $46,000
At UC?
at UC. And I
I
thought,
swear,
oh,
I think I paid like, I swear it was like $2,500 for my
right,
education.
right. So when people said, oh, it's going to be expensive, you'll have three there, all at the same time. I thought, okay, I know expensive, but I didn't know that expensive.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's wild.
yeah.
Okay, well,
Um,
there you go. So it's a
yep.
darn good thing you're earning money and you're like
Yes.
bringing it home.
Right, right. Well, and I know I've been on your podcast before, and I've kind of talked about how grateful I was to find you. I actually started my company the year you started Business of Design.
No
Um,
way.
yes, but I did not find you for way too long.
Oh,
Back then we didn't have Instagram, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't,
yeah.
it just marketing wasn't as easy to, we didn't have YouTube. We didn't,
Yeah.
I,
I I honestly don't know if it's any easier now, because I think now what happens is there's 12 million choices.
right.
There's a new coach for interior designers every day. Every
Mm-hmm.
day. So
Oh,
I'm not sure. I still think like Business of Design is just this one little recommendation at a time. That's how we
yeah.
always get new members to join. But have a success story like yours come on the show, it's so gratifying, because literally our mission statement is to help one designer at a time, and that's how we feel like that's the kind of life we've led. So tell us where you're at and what's happened, and let's talk about some of your insights in running your business since you joined.
Okay. Well, so I found you about 7 years ago. And when I started listening to your podcast, I realized I had so much of the shame that you mentioned,
Mm.
where I had a thriving business. I was bringing in, about 800,000 for, oh my goodness, sorry,
Revenue? You mean like
yes,
800,000 in revenue?
in revenue.
Yeah.
And I think my profit was about 30,000.
Yeah.
I really could have, you say, and there were times that I was like, why am I not working at Starbucks? Like I probably would have rather someone thrown a coffee at me if I messed up, other than, than what I was doing.
You would have
And
made $30,000 and gotten free coffee.
right, right. And I was working 60 hours a week. We weren't really taking vacations. I did absolutely have the excuse of, well, my husband has a good job and I
Yeah.
have little kids. And so I was just plugging along. But then I'd go to industry events and see other people, and they'd go, wow, Lindsay, you have all these big, amazing projects. You must be doing so great. And they they were doing so great, or it appeared to be so. And
Yeah.
I just felt like there's got to be a better way to run these projects and run my business. And so I found the podcast, started listening, joined membership right away, dove in, and just kind of the drinking from the water hose, tried to implement everything very quickly. Came to the 2020 conference right before COVID hit.
Who knew? Who knew
Right,
that like
right,
150 people in a room was going to be something we didn't do for
right.
a long time?
And I
Yeah,
kept
after
saying
that.
2020, it's going to be my year. I was so excited. And I kind of wrote down some of my numbers, but so 2020, I then brought in 600,000 that year. That was my revenue, but I took home about 100,000 profit, which
Whoa. Okay. So wait a minute. So just so we're clear, because there's somebody
mhm,
listening who's, half tuned out because they're driving and just told their
mhm,
kids to stop throwing popcorn at each other in the back seat, and we get it.
right, right.
But you said that you were you were bringing in $800,000 in revenue, but at the
Mhm,
end of the year, you had $30,000 in profit.
right,
But moving forward, you were bringing in $600,000 in revenue, but your
mhm,
profit was $100,000. So
right,
that's huge.
right,
We don't often hear that with lower revenue, we made a lot more money. So
right.
can you unpack any of that for us? What do you think caused that? I know you have more numbers to share and I want to hear them, but that's such an interesting one.
Right. So really what it was, I was running everything through my account, some things that I shouldn't have been, but I didn't realize I shouldn't have been.
Yeah.
So, like the contractor would give me his bill and I would pay him, and then I'd put a little itty bitty markup. And what really was happening, I was paying more in taxes and overhead. I was paying more because I was trying to make a penny, a penny here and
Yeah.
a penny there.
Stressing
And
out about earning a tiny amount of money to
right,
to offer labor and services on behalf of clients,
right.
right?
Right. And I was doing the free consultation still. I
Mm.
was charging 75 an hour. And if I look back, I mean, I had been in business. So, I mean, this was 7 years ago. I'd been in business 12 to 13 years just on
Right.
my own. And I had been doing design before that for another company. And it's like, why was I doing free consultations? And it took a couple things. Business of Design really gave me the language to use. So then my confidence was built. And when you said, why is everyone doing free consultations? I went, why are we? It was it was sort of this epiphany. And so, and in 2021, I think January, I had to hire two new employees because
Mm.
just in that first month, and people were kind of all of a sudden they had been sitting around for a year in their homes going, okay, now we've got projects to do. But I think I had 30 or 34 new consultations in that first month.
Wow. Paid.
Yes.
I
And
wonder if there are designers still going to the consultation for free. In 2004, when we launched, most people went for free.
mhm,
You know, 10 years later, some people went for free. I wonder if there aren't still designers going for free. And the problem with that is not that you just lose out on the money you would make from the consultation, but I
mhm,
actually didn't convert as many of those free customers to paid customers
right,
as I do now.
right,
When they're a paid consultation, they almost 100% of the time become a paid project. When they were a free consultation, 50% of the time they became a paid project.
mhm. And I appreciate, so I used to be resentful when it was a free consultation if I didn't convert someone to a project,
Yeah.
but a good amount of people, if they are DIYers, they will still pay for a
Yeah.
consultation and run with the notes. And there's no hard feelings
Yeah.
because they paid for that consultation. And I don't feel like I just wasted a bunch of time when all they wanted out of it was kind of a jump start.
Yeah.
Great. We
It's fun,
we
actually. I love
Mhm,
doing those. And in fact, I had this one person, it's been a long time, but I had this one person who booked one and then like 6 months later booked another and then like a year later another. So I could see her
mhm,
progress. And it was just kind of fun to see how
right.
she took the information I gave her. I didn't feel resentful at all. I loved the money. In fact, it
Mhm,
was it's the easiest money in the whole world. You don't
right.
even need insurance. I don't think we probably do, but you maybe don't because what's the
Mhm.
risk of giving someone advice on how to renovate their home. There's very little risk involved.
Right. Right. And so I, and another thing you said, I appreciate that you're always telling everyone, raise your rates. If you have enough work, then you're obviously sought after, raise your rates. And for me, right at first, I was nervous to raise my rates, but what I told myself is I'm going to pay more attention to that I'm billing for all of my time. And then when I realized I'm billing for all my time, so I think I doubled my billables without even raising my rate. And then I raised my rates.
Yeah.
But I didn't do it immediately because I was going through all of your videos, and I was trying to figure everything out. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to get better with I kept for probably about a year after I joined, I kept my rate at 75, which now I look back and I'm like, that was, anyway, I shouldn't have, but I kept my rate at 75, but doubling my billables, and I wasn't working more hours.
Right.
So it was just paying more
That's
attention.
interesting. So that's an option for someone. If you're really crippled by the fear of raising your rate,
Mhm.
do you have the courage to then track 100% of the time you spend working on projects and bill the clients for that time?
Mhm.
Because I still think there's a lot of shenanigans going on around that. If I had to guess, I would say 85%, 90% of designers do not bill for all their time.
Right.
And
Right.
they
Well,
and the
and
excuses we make for not billing for the time are hilarious. Like
yeah.
one of my favorites is when there's a deficiency and they say, well, it's not the client's fault. And I say, well, it's not your fault either.
Right.
You live in the real world and this thing went wrong and someone has to correct it. And it's the least fun part of the
Mhm.
job. So why would you do the least fun part of the job for free?
Mhm. Right.
Right? Anyway,
Right.
it's super interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so I interrupted you as you were about to give us some revealing numbers. So, and this is 2021. You then went to 600,000 in revenue, but now you're making 1/6 in profit,
Right.
$100,000 in profit, which
Right.
sounds like more fun to me than 30.
Right.
100,000 sounds like more fun than 30
Right. So this last year, we were just shy of 1 million
in
and
revenue.
in revenue,
Okay.
and 250,000 was my take home.
Okay, so
And
yeah, you know,
never did I think that was possible, right? It all of a sudden my husband was going, "Oh, awesome. You can pay for this vacation and you can, it
how
it
good does that feel?
amazing."
Yeah.
And one thing that I realized too is I was working about 30 hours a week. I wasn't opening my computer at night. I wasn't texting my employees in a panic, an hour before work in the morning. Hey, did we get this put together? Are we ready for this meeting? I wasn't working the extra hours. And we've vacationed every other month for a week last year because I thought, okay, oldest is going to college. We don't know what family trips will look like. I went crazy. And every other week we were gone for a week. And my employees were kind of going, we got it.
Wait, you took a week off every month.
Every other month.
Every other month you took a week off. That's
Yes.
spectacular. But
And
why shouldn't you be able to do that? Like a
right.
lot of CEOs have that kind of flexibility, but we just tend to not think of ourselves like that. And I think it's really important. Thank you for coming on the show and talking about it because if you don't know that's possible,
Right.
if you're working those 60 hours and you haven't had a vacation in 2 years that you weren't glued to your phone because
Mhm.
you're worried about projects, you might not know that that's possible.
Right.
But to
Right.
hear Lindsay come on the show and say,
Mhm.
here's where I started and here's where I
Right.
am now.
Yes.
So, and the fact that you are close to 1 million in revenue, and you're taking home profitability of $250,000, I have so many questions about that. Has that made your
Mhm.
clients hate you?
Not at all. It
Right,
makes them value me more
right,
because what I used to, so obviously 7 years ago my clients didn't know how pathetic my income was.
right. They assumed
But
that you were making money,
right.
FYI. They
Right.
did. So they resented whenever you seemed stressed about some expense that came up on the project because they
Right.
just assumed you're making money. Otherwise, why are you doing it?
Right. And I was offering a lifestyle that I was not living.
Mm.
And I had a meeting with an organizer the other day, and she goes into these high-end homes and she does stuff. Well, then we were chatting just kind of personally, right? And she mentions the one bedroom apartment that she is sharing with her three children, and she's a single mom right now, right? And I go, I it made me realize I didn't tell my clients back in the day that I couldn't live the lifestyle I was offering up to them. But I'm sure there were times I was giving them the more frugal option because my and my husband made fine money. It wasn't, we were fine, but I was not providing anything
Mm-hmm.
to our finances. We weren't putting money in, as much money into savings. We didn't have investments. We didn't go on these vacations that, we'd have to save up for a year to do one nice vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't, I mean, for Christmas, I surprised him and our kids with a February trip to Hawaii. Right. And he's like,
Sweet.
okay, okay. I called his boss and I said he needs this week off. Right. But and he even made a comment about how nice it is that I am not as stressed. I am working less hours. And I can do that now for our family, which is so rewarding for me, and my employees appreciate it. I used to sort of feel like I had to hide vacations from them.
Yeah.
And now I'm able to, I turned them from liabilities to assets. So I told them,
Ooh.
hey, your pay can increase if your billables justify it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have more vacation time if you can get your work done more efficiently, and just things like that. That I used to rely so much on our profit as being from my billable hours only.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't marking down all my time. And I'd sit at my desk and I'd realize I'd jump from client to client. So one of the tricks I started doing is a tally sheet with all of our clients. If I jumped over to someone, if a email came through, and I kind of squirrel sometimes, right? I'm jumping around.
Yeah, we're
Uh,
human.
right. And so I'd mark if I jumped over to something for 15 minutes, I'd tally it up.
Mhm.
And the first month I did that, I was adding about 10 hours a week to my billables
Yeah.
just by these little 15-minute that in the past I was like, oh, I don't need to track every 15 minutes,
Yeah.
right?
That took me a minute. And then I'd be like, no, actually, that took 22 minutes by
Mm-hmm.
the time you did all the follow-ups. The interesting thing about that being really intentional and tracking every minute that you're working on projects, if you can translate that mindset to employees and you
Mm-hmm.
banked 10 more hours a week, each one of your employees is going to also probably bank 10 more hours a week. And you're talking like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 hours of billables that were getting left on the table. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just so much of the problems we have as individuals in this industry are self-inflicted wounds.
Mm-hmm.
And we just are, we're kind of oblivious to it,
Right.
which is
Right.
why we have to just keep talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So, have you thought about under a million? That's great. Have you thought about getting to that next, $2 million? Like, what would it take without getting more clients and being more stressed and working more hours? What would it take to get you to that next milestone?
So yes, yes, absolutely. And one thing I always try to do is listen to, so on my way to work, I listen to something improvement wise, or business improving, or I just listened to a book. I wrote down his
Ooh,
name so I would not say it wrong. The Six Habits of Growth by Brendan Burchard. And
oops,
it
that's a,
was the
um,
easiest read and very common. I'm just going to say common sense kind of stuff, which sometimes I realize I don't have common sense. and where other people
Or you
do.
just need to be reminded to use it. Like
Right.
maybe there was nothing revolutionary in there, but there were things that's like, yeah, I forgot about it. Was there something that sticks out about the book that just made you go, oh, yes.
So he talked about when to have motivation, when to have energy, and to be intentional. And so I am very intentional on my way to work, listening to something that is going to get me motivated and ready to work hard and to focus. And
Mhm.
then when I, excuse me, when I leave work, I listen to something fun so that it checks me out a little bit. I
Yeah.
stop thinking about work. I have
Yeah.
a little bit of drive time before I am either getting to the house, getting to a kid event, at a, and and with doing that, I've started focusing on, I always, and I know I have always done this, I say yes to every project. It doesn't matter if it's a $2 project, if it's a $2 million project, if it's a $2 million project that has a crummy client that I actually should not be taking. um, I'm getting, I'm watching for red flags. Just because there's a big dollar sign to the project does not
Yeah.
mean I should say yes. And if there's a tiny little itty bitty dollar sign to the project, probably shouldn't say yes. But I
Yeah.
used to say yes to everything.
Mhm.
And one of your speakers at the conference said, when you are saying yes to something, you are saying no to something else.
I remember that. I think of that
Yes,
a lot, actually.
I do too, because I thought that I don't want to be saying no to this amazing project with amazing client and an amazing budget because I said yes to a little project with kind of a crummy, if I'm seeing red flags. And so one thing I started to do is I increased my rate if it was a smaller project, my hourly rate.
Interesting. So tell us where you're at with your rates now, since you've been so, candid and so generous in your sharing. You start at
Right.
75. Where are you now?
So 225 an hour.
Okay. And if it's
And
a tiny project, what would you go to?
so I send out a retainer that is 400 an hour for 10, 20, 30, 40 hours.
Okay.
So that's where, so I'm billing them 400 an hour if it's a tiny project, because I do get a lot of sort of hourly where it didn't turn into a project. And I know this is not ideal, but it didn't turn out into a project. And I sent them the consultation notes and they're kind of going to DIY it. But then
Hmm.
they will call me back and say, hey, can you come over for an hour? Or can you meet me here? Or can you, and I say yes, but I send this retainer that's 400 an hour, so that kind of, again, when I started the consultations and I wasn't charging for these people that just want to pay hourly for some time, I give them block hours at 400 an hour instead of the 225.
Well, that makes sense to me. If you've got some of those lingering jobs and you don't want to be mean, you don't want to not help them, but you're not going to help them for free. I went to a new a yoga studio down the street from me here the other day, and one class, a single class, is $55.
Mhm.
Now, I'm pre-COVID, we were in LA, we were paying $20 a yoga class.
Mhm.
Post-COVID, it's 30, but 55 is a new game, right? That's like, whoa.
Right.
But they had a class pack of 10 classes for $40 a class, and 40 is more, okay, that's really manageable. So they're doing the same thing. They're saying,
Mhm.
if you just want to do one, great, we're going to charge you extra for that.
Right.
But if you want to commit and make this work, then we're going to
Mhm.
give you a good discount on it. I don't have an objection to that at all. But it
Right.
does make you wonder why you wouldn't then increase other projects to the higher rate if you're getting it on small projects.
Right.
Hmm.
And some of that, like, here's where my, I'm a yes person.
Yeah.
So some of that is I almost want it to scare some people away.
Sure. And it might. And it might. but then
So,
if it doesn't, at least you're
right,
being well paid for it. That's what I think.
right,
Like I've said this before at conferences or whatever, money's the lubrication, right?
right.
Money makes you feel good about stuff. So, might as well do it. If I'm going to get paid that much, I might as well go for it. Yeah, why not?
Right. So, and
I,
yes, it's almost a baby step to increase my rates for
yeah,
everyone else.
yeah,
Um, that I kind of test the waters and I see how many people, and this is something I started the beginning of this year because we started getting so many of these hourly clients that didn't necessarily want
yeah.
to commit to a full project. And I finally said, we have too many of these hourly clients that are taking away from our big projects. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Interesting. I think that could be helpful to someone listening because I think we're hearing from a lot of designers it's slow. The political environment has made people a little skittish, especially if you do
mhm,
any kind of trans-border purchasing and there's tariffs on furniture. We're getting emails, as you know, every day from suppliers saying our prices have gone up and clients are,
mhm,
are stressed about it. And I certainly am feeling it in my business. And I
mhm.
think having that sort of package ready to go is not a bad idea, so that at least if you do want to do the smaller things, which I frankly don't find quite as satisfying as a whole house top to bottom, I just
Right,
don't. So I might as well make more money on it.
right.
I think that makes sense. So in terms of getting your revenue up,
Mhm,
what I discovered is once I was comfortable making more money and I was comfortable being able to take my family to Hawaii for the week and all that kind of stuff, it became kind of a game. I kind of liked it. And I started
mhm,
to compete with my husband for who was going to make the most money and who got bragging rights that year and all that kind of stuff. So one of the things I did is I began to look at the projects I was working on and thinking, this project's going to be a $200,000 project. How can I get it to three? Not by
mhm,
tricking the client into spending more, not by overcharging for things the client's going to buy, but by saying to the client, we're already doing the mudroom and the entranceway and the living room. Is there some reason you're not doing the dining room right now? It's right there. Why don't we
right,
you should just add it at the same time. It's going to look so tired, which is true when
mhm,
all these other rooms are done. Or in February, I'll say, what, patio season is coming. What does your outdoors look like? What's your entertaining outdoors this year? Oh, my daughter's getting married. Oh my gosh, let's look at it, right? We should look
right.
at it. And then that adds $200,000 to the project when you get into the outdoor
Mhm,
spaces. So I just began to I had more time as the CEO of my company to
mhm.
actively look for additional sources of revenue, which I never had time for before when I was working 70 hours a week.
Right, right. Well, and yes, I'm with you. That's where when I'm at a project, sometimes I just throw other rooms into the presentation.
No, oh,
That
you do.
mhm.
Do you do flat fee or do you do an hourly fee?
I do flat fee, but
Okay, so they don't mind that then.
right. And when when I'm walking the space, so we recently had a client that was doing a primary bathroom, but you had to walk through the primary bedroom to get to, and then a dining room. So when I sent her the proposal for the flat fee, I added hours that I knew I was going to take to spruce up her primary bedroom as you're on your way
Interesting.
into, why are we going to get a primary bathroom when we don't touch the bedroom?
Right? It's going to look tired. It's going to look tired. It's going to
Mhm.
not be as satisfying. And did the client say, yeah, let's go for it. Let's do both.
Yep. She
That
she
has
kind
been
of
my
made a joke like in
yeah.
for a penny, or I don't remember the
In
phrase,
for a
but
penny, in for a pound. Yeah.
yes, yes,
Yeah, I'm old enough that I remember that
yes.
expression. I think
Oh,
it's a British expression, though. I don't know.
yeah,
Um, that has been my experience too, that if you propose something to a client that's reasonable and it makes sense, you're doing the kitchen now, why aren't you also doing the family room, which is wide open to the kitchen?
right.
They'll say, you're right. Let's see what it would cost. And then when you
Mhm.
show them, they like the result of the presentation so much, of course they're going to spend the extra money.
Right. Well,
But
and I think early on in business, oh, I say early on, way too many years in business when I
yeah,
was
me
still in my
too.
infancy stage, I I thought design fees were how we made money. And I thought I
Yeah.
could be profitable just with design fees. I had a couple, probably the second year I was in business, husband and wife, both doctors, and they went, "Oh, $75 an hour, that's more than we make." They kind of made a comment that I
Yeah.
just, and they still went through with it. Well,
Yeah.
at the end of the project, I had a pitiful bill to them for like 3 hours because I was only charging for meeting times. I wasn't charging for the behind the scene time.
Yeah.
I thought that's kind of what you were supposed to do because I was like, oh, that's why you charge 75 an hour. And then after probably 2 weeks of designing for them, I had a whatever, 3 times $75, a $225 bill to them. It was ridiculous. And I look back and I go, you cannot be profitable only doing design fees.
No.
I think storefronts right now are struggling to be profitable because they don't have design fees, but then they have markup,
Right.
right? And then the internet has made everything and the tariffs and all of this. So I
Yeah.
think what we're all realizing is we have to have a healthy balance of or a healthy combination of design fees and markup and profit on
Yeah.
materials and
A pricing model can't subsist on just design fees. If you want
right.
to really pay yourself a salary, gain
Mhm.
profit, and put away money for the future.
Right.
If you just want to be able to pay for groceries,
Mhm.
fine.
Yep.
But if you want more than that, and I
Mhm.
hope you want more than that, right? I was so naive, and my husband also had a good job that I just kept telling myself, it's okay. I'll worry about it later. I'll make money later. And you make me laugh about the infancy stage because for sure I was in the infancy stage for 10 years,
Mhm.
right? Kids don't usually stay in the infancy stage for 10 years, but I
Right.
did.
Right.
Like,
Right.
right?
And
Oh my
and
gosh.
back then too, I also realized that essentially I had a secret menu that I thought when I said I'm full service design, I thought people knew what that meant.
Hmm.
And they don't always know what that meant. So
No.
I would get into construction. I'd have done the design work for, say, a kitchen and a bathroom, and some flooring and some paint in other rooms. And I had one of my clients. We were almost at the end of construction, and she said, "Oh, can you help me pick a sofa?" And it hit me like a pound of bricks. I thought she doesn't know that full service means because I wasn't saying all that I could do. I wasn't offering that. Um, so when you ask, what are my plans going forward? It is to be proactive with, hey, I know you initially hired me to come over and look at renovating this bathroom. Well,
Mhm.
let's also add some furniture into the primary bedroom, and let's also, we can paint, we can do window treatments. I
Yeah.
share with them way early on, whereas I used to not, because I thought they would just ask for what they needed
Yeah.
and they understood. I thought they understood when I say full service, it's
Yeah.
window treatments and it's furniture and it's artwork and it's light fixtures
Yeah.
and they didn't.
It's funny, but I also thought it'll feel like I'm greedy and I want more and I
Mhm.
want money. And I grew up with little money, not quite enough money, and a feeling of some shame around that. And
Mhm.
so the idea that I would let somebody know that I wanted more money felt
Mhm.
really, really embarrassing
Right.
to me. Like instead, my MO was just no, whatever this project exactly as it is perfect. We don't have to add anything to it,
Mhm.
which is crazy. Like I do need to make money and I want to provide really good value for that money. So now that full service just isn't enough of a description, are you more careful about describing what's included in those services in your pre-qualifying materials, like your website and any documentation?
Yes. So now we do a welcome letter and then I say it at the consultation, even if it's
Yeah.
a DIY project or if it's moving into, we're converting it to a project. Um, just all along the way. So I am marketing better
Yeah.
and just sharing better as as we go through the process.
And
So,
the most lucrative marketing is to your existing clients. That's the thing that I never understood. Like the best marketing I can do is to somebody who's paid for a consultation.
mhm,
So that's why I love in my contract, it lists all the things we do, even if they're just doing a bathroom, it lists all the things we do, including vacation homes and, boardrooms and commercial projects. It's all there. And I
right.
can't tell you how many clients have said, oh, like, you do boardrooms? Oh, my son's company is looking for somebody. I'm going to connect you.
Mhm,
So, and that wouldn't happen if I wasn't putting it out there. Like I'm not forcing people to do more with me. What I'm saying is, here are the things I can do. Let me know how I can help you.
mhm. And that has, so I've really lucked out in not slowing down when kind of whenever the market slows down. But I do realize I have a big shift. I do commercial and residential. And so I do see a big shift. One of the years, oh, I think it was 2008. Um, Everyone was kind of slow. And I had seven,
Kinda. 2008 was a bloodbath. It was
right,
horrible. It was a disaster for the design
right.
industry.
And I think I worked on 7 law firms, which I started making jokes like, I guess I'm the attorney's designer. I don't know how I had worked on one of the one of the attorneys. I had worked on he and his wife's home, and he goes, "Oh, can you come and just spruce up our entryway?" Well, then it turned into a bigger project, and then one of his fellow lawyers came in and said, "Oh, who did this?"
Love
And
it.
so I do try to shift my marketing if I feel residential is slower.
Mm.
I do try to shift my marketing and what I'm putting out there with our after photos of some of the commercial spaces that we've done. And
Yeah.
so we're actually working on a restaurant right now that's being built
How
in Oakdale.
fun.
It is really fun.
I've never done a restaurant before. I always think it'd be so fun. I'm sure it's
I
got its particular challenges, but it
it
looks
it
like fun.
does, and it's sort of I keep telling my staff, I'm like, okay, how do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time. We know how to do this. But because of that, I had a casino reach out to me, and I
Way.
yes, and it's in our area. It's kind of up in the hills, and you pass a newly renovated casino. So they realized they stopped having people past the newly renovated one and come to theirs. And
Hmm,
so, um,
interesting.
yeah,
Oh
so
my
so
gosh.
it is fun. It definitely keeps me on my toes because I have to
Yeah.
learn the uh, new products that can be used and can't. And
But
so,
I can't imagine that you getting to the 2 million, $3 million mark is going to be that hard. For me, once I crossed that line, I was able to really get my revenue up. It really, once I got it, it just went
mhm,
right through the roof. And then it's relatively easy to stay there. You don't need that many projects. You just need the right projects.
right,
Yeah,
right.
but casino sounds like the right project.
Yeah, it's been so fun so far. Hopefully soon we'll have some after photos
Yeah,
to
I want
share.
to follow that. That sounds really good. Lindsay, as you know, we like to end every episode with design intervention. Just a great piece of advice you want to leave in addition to all the other great pieces of advice you've given us, but maybe one that's kind of on its own.
Yes. So I don't know. I honestly might have heard this from a guest on your podcast,
Yeah.
or another podcast. I don't know where I heard this, but someone one time said, "What others think of you is none of your business."
Hmm.
So they're not saying it to you, then it doesn't matter if someone else tells you what they said about you or if it's what you are imagining they're saying about you. And I think for a long time, that's what kept me small. I was afraid of what others thought. And I tell
Like
my kids
she's
all the
getting too
time,
big for herself. Who does she think
yes,
she is? Like that kind of stuff. If she charges
yes.
so much or
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
And and I think as I look back, I was probably wrong on what they were thinking.
Yeah.
And so I tell my kids all the time, what others think of you is none of your business. You don't need to know, you don't need to worry about it. Just you be you, you work hard.
Yeah.
And
As long as you're okay with looking in the mirror and you feel good about what you bring to the table. Yeah. And
yeah.
I think it's so true. I've been wrong like all the time. All the
Mhm.
time I'm wrong. I make up a story and then I find out
Mhm.
the actual truth and I'm like, oh, the story I made up was just so damaging. I wonder why we just don't make up a good story. Why do we
I
make up
don't know.
such a negative story instead of
I
like a
don't
really
know.
positive, oh, they think I'm great.
Right.
Why
Right.
not?
Well, and it would affect my billables also because I'd think, oh, they're going to be so mad. I've heard you say
Yeah.
that too before. They're going to be so mad when they see this. And well, if they're going to be mad at that bill, they're going to be mad at the bill that
Yeah.
that you discounted.
Yeah.
And so it just
Yeah.
I tell myself that all the time. What others think is none of my business.
I love that. And I think what you shared today is just how your journey has increased your discipline and how you are so much more intentional about every aspect of your business. And I just don't think there's any way around that. I think if you're going to be successful, you're going to have to just determine that you're going to be successful and then apply some discipline.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So good to see you.
You too. Thank you so much for having me on.
Enjoy beautiful Modesto. I haven't been up there in so long, but it's so funny because I was just saying this to somebody else. Like, even though we're both in California, well, half the year I'm in Toronto, but the half that I'm in California, we're in the same state, but it's so far.
Right.
It's,
Right.
it's easier for me from Toronto to go to London than it is from California. I guess a
Oh,
flight is short. I always think of driving,
yeah.
but anyway, it's good to see you.
You too. Thanks, Kimberly.